Okay, if you could just...
Oh, okay.
Okay, it's a new school year, and for our terms it's already 5773, even though this is L, leading up to Rosh Hashanah. And one thing about the Successful Me program that we're running at the Hebrew Day School, which graphically we haven't captured, is, there are 3 S's in the word successful, and there are 3 S's in the concept of what we're trying to teach. And the third one, which we call Seeing Hashem, has to do with appreciation. And it's interesting that it's the third one, because when we were structuring the program, but when I see it as the third one, I see it as the fundamental idea, something that all things spring from. And it really came out of a discussion we had about 21st century skills and thinking about what it really takes to be successful and the uncertain future of the world, and the idea that people need impetus to continue. That's a big issue in life today. You have a lot of people with PhDs who are languishing and have no place to go. It's a political issue, even in a campaign. So we wanted to discuss this idea of what it means to appreciate something. And I wanted to ask an evocative question, first of all. Well, let's do this. If I were to tell you right now, whenever I feel a little down, whenever things are bothering me, I look at my watch and I think, wow, I have this watch. And it makes me happy. I appreciate having it. And it gives me a perspective, a lift, in terms of going on with my life. Let's say I were to say that. And then I would ask you the question, what would you most like to hear about my watch that would make you happy with that idea? Who wants to offer a suggestion? What would make it like something beautiful for me to say that? Yes?
If it was given to you by somebody that...
It was given to me by someone important. Let's say if I were to say, this watch was my great-grandfather's, and it's been in our family for 135 years. So you'd say, wow, that's a nice thing to appreciate. And again, we know how appreciation works. A lot of days I don't even notice I have a watch on, every now and then.
Sentimental value.
Right, so sentimental value. But let's say, different than that, if I were to say, you see this watch? I stole it from President Obama while he was campaigning. So it would be a whole different ball of wax. What am I celebrating? Look what a crafty guy I am. He has 500 security people. The whole Secret Service couldn't stop me from stealing his watch. Here I am, sitting here, I stole the watch from the president. So it's a whole different idea. If I were to say, I look at the watch and it makes me feel happy, so you'd say, wow, this is not the kind of person I'm really interested in being around. Okay? But one thing I just want to point out that's interesting about appreciation is that a lot of the ideas of appreciation stem from one idea, where it comes from. Okay, where does it come from? If I was taking out money and I said, I don't want to spend this dollar, it's the first dollar I ever earned. I appreciate this dollar, especially. So again, that can be taken a lot of different ways, but the idea of where something comes from. So I want to explore this idea of appreciation in terms of the Torah, in terms of sources we have. And I just want to try to expand on it and give us a little bit of a rooting in the idea of appreciation, to appreciate what appreciation really means. That's why it's the idea of the roots of appreciation is the name of the class, where it comes from. And I also think of the idea of how we would root appreciation in our children. What we can understand and convey to our children so that that their appreciation for things will grow, which is a hard thing to do, right? We always know, the mother screaming at the kids, I gave birth to you. It doesn't seem to be a very cogent line most of the time when kids are not that interested in hearing what their mother has to say. But, so we're going to try to see how we could make that scenario work a little bit better. So let's look at the first source. First source comes from the first section of this week's Parsha, which has to do with bringing the Bikurim to Yerushalayim. Okay, it's a once-a-year thing, and it really is an amazing process. The Mishnah describes how each...
Bikurim is 3 times a year.
No, Bikurim is once a year, because you'd bring the Bikurim and you'd make a whole statement in front of the Kohen that this is the fruit, these are the first fruits. And it's a process which the Mishnah describes a farmer as he begins to see his crops come in, and it really applies to the 7 species of the land of Israel. So he has to see what blossoms first. So if I have a pomegranate tree, I'm watering the tree, I'm fertilizing the tree, and every day I'm watching, like, where is the first bud coming from? And as soon as I see the first bud on the tree, I run over with a ribbon. This is what the farmer is required to do. And he ties the ribbon onto that. So if there's 200 pomegranates on this tree, this one is the bikurim. This is the first fruit, and this is the one I'm not allowed to eat. I'm going to put it in a basket. I'm going to bring it with me to Yerushalayim. I'm going to present it to the Kohen in the Beit HaMikdash, and I'm going to make a whole speech there when I get there. And that's the process. Now, what's confusing for all of us is, when did this happen? Typically, Shavuot and after, during the whole summer, is when farmers would come to Yerushalayim. And the Mishnah describes the whole system where each village would gather together. They had a person appointed to say, okay, when's it best for us to go? We all choose July 25th. It's sort of like coordinating vacations in a way in the old days. Say, fine, so we're going to gather up on July 25th. We're going to meet in the village square, and we're going to march off toward Yerushalayim. And along the way, we'll meet other villages who happen to be coming that day. And then literally hundreds, thousands of us are going to go through the gates of Yerushalayim, each of us holding our own basket. The poor person has a simple basket. The rich person might have a golden basket. And each person, one after the other, is going to present it to the Kohen and make a speech. Now, confusing to us is that the words of that speech are quoted extensively in the Haggadah for Pesach. So, but that's confusing for us because that's not the way the Torah had it. Now, as we use those ideas for Pesach, because it talks about the Jewish people going out of Egypt, but the idea of the Bikurim is a summertime thing. And the idea of first fruits in general, just like the firstborn in a family, is people tend to have a special attachment to the first of anything. You know, first wives, whatever it is. I'm only joking. So,
even the Bechor get double the
right,
inheritance.
right, has a special place in the family. But in general, we know that, you know, like, when you see a little kid, you know, anything, you're growing a tomato. Wow, there's a tomato coming. Come look at it. Come look at it. You know, when at the end of the summer, he says he's sick and tired of having so many tomatoes. He says, you know, I got a couple of tomatoes out there. Maybe we'll just let them go. We'll let the neighborhood cats have little tomatoes for breakfast. But the beginning of something always has a special excitement. So that's what Bikurim, that's the mitzvah of Bikurim, to capture that and to make something of it. Here's what the person says. And this is a translation of Psukim Gimel and Yud Aleph in chapter 26. You can look it up. But what he says is, I give evidence that I can put the Hebrew in too, and we have Chumashim if somebody wants to look at it in Hebrew. I give evidence today in bringing the first fruits that I have come to the land that Hashem swore to give to our fathers, to give to us. And then as he finishes the speech, and then you will be happy, you'll be able to enjoy all the good that Hashem has given to you and to your family. So first of all, this is my first piece of evidence of what I said in the introduction. In other words, the first thing we say is, there's somebody on the outside and says, you know, I've seen better pomegranates. You know, I don't know if this would make it into Whole Foods. You know, they might not take this one. Why is this guy making such a big deal about this particular pomegranate that he's presenting it to the Kohen, making this whole speech? So the answer is, where does it come from? Just like with the watch. You know where this pomegranate comes from? It comes from the land that Hashem swore to give to our fathers and to give to us. This didn't grow anyplace. This grew from the land that my great-great-grandfather, to use the exact words I used before with the watch, he came here, he settled it, and this is his land, and he passed that land on to me, and he passed that land on to me. So what are you talking about? This pomegranate, do you know how beautiful this pomegranate is to me? It has special beauty to me, more so than anyone could imagine. And that's what we're trying to evoke. Because otherwise, without that component, what's the nature of human beings? Nature of human beings, I say, oh, I see what time it is. Then I say, gee, I like his watch better. Where'd you get your watch? How much did you pay for it? Maybe it's time for me to get a new watch. You know what I'm saying? Automatically, if people use something and they don't attach any special value to it, then automatically it just becomes a rat race. Yeah, this is my watch. Does it make me happy? It makes me happy, but gee, now I see you have a different watch. Yours is a little shinier. I like your dial a little bit better than my dial. Where did you get yours? How much does it cost? Maybe I'll get a new watch. You know, and that's the trend of people using everything. That's the trend of toys. You know, we buy toys for our kids all the time. We give them a toy. Oh, I want this toy, I want this toy. Oh, no, you wait, we'll get it. A special occasion, your birthday's coming up, the kid waits, he's dying for the toy, he gets the toy 5 minutes later, it's in the pile in the corner of the room, and it's like it never existed, and the kid's not even willing to pick it up and put it back in the box, the chutzpah, because it's meaningless to him. Why? Because the nature of a person is, if I get something that I like, that tastes good to me, that provokes me to think that there are other things out there that I might like even more. That's human nature. Human nature is the antithesis of appreciation on that level. So what appreciation comes in is to attach a special value to something so that you see it differently. The most beautiful way to see things is the idea is, oh, I love your watch. Where did you get it from? Oh, your great-grandfather bought that watch in 1840 when he was in Poland. Well, my great-grandfather bought the watch when he was in Vienna. And isn't it amazing that you have a watch that every time you look at it reminds you of your ancestors and that you're part of a family? And I also have a watch that reminds me of that. And see, right away that changes the dimension of, well, how much did you pay for it? How many diamonds does your watch have on it? You know, do you have a Swiss mechanism or do you have something else? Or whatever people who are into watches, feel. See, by attaching a personal value to something and by recognizing a source for something and attaching value because it comes from that source, that's the best way to change and to deflect the otherwise automatic reaction people have. And in the world today, it's famous for people, get a promotion, they run out and they buy the car of their dreams. And while they're driving out of the dealership, somebody says, oh, did you get the this and this gizmo that they just added? No, I don't have that. And immediately
diminishes.
It's almost valueless to them. It's like, oh, I bought the wrong car. Or, oh, I'm driving a car that doesn't have this gizmo on it, and the other guy has that. We have to find ways. Appreciation is a voice that we can cultivate within ourselves to attach. And when you have that, it's very beautiful. When you see someone, when you imagine someone sitting down to a meal, and you come into the lunchroom, all the kids come into the lunchroom, and they're all eating lunch. And the kid says, wow, my mommy made the sandwich for me. I love it. And the other kid says, well, my sandwich is twice as big as your sandwich. So the kid says, so what? I'm glad. Eat 5 sandwiches. You know what I mean? This is what my mommy made for me. This is what she prepared for me. She's been taking care of me for a long time. It's worked out pretty well for me until now. We've been managing okay. And you're managing okay too, Baruch Hashem. It cuts a certain chord of dissatisfaction within a person. And it opens the person up to valuing something. And then I want to try to develop this idea in what I think is an interesting way.
If I may, the word appreciation in Hebrew is aracha. Comes from
Okay.
the root erech of
Okay, to see the value.
the value of things in different ways.
So it's a very interesting thing, and it'll be, I don't want to take away too much time from the class, but the classical Ivrit, the word for appreciation is hakarat hatov. Different idea. So you're right. La'aroch mashahu, if I want to value something, so then I go back to the person and says, how much do you pay for your watch? You got that watch for $100? I spent $150 for my watch. I got rooked.
But erech is not just by money.
I understand. And I do understand that. But that's something. But I think the idea of let's see. We'll think about this because I didn't think about that so much. But to evaluate something. But the idea of hakarat tov is to recognize, to see the good in something. To see the good in something. See, whenever you talk about hakara, to be makir mashahu, so it requires a perspective taking. I see you. I don't know your name. Hi, how are you? Have a good day. We're finished. But if I recognize you, I say, oh, this is a person who I think is very wise and could give me great advice on the stock market today, and I'm about to buy some stock. So then I makir you. You see what I'm saying? Then I have a hakara, which is specific, which goes beyond the fact. If a policeman said, "What did the guy look like?" Well, he had a blue shirt on and he had dark hair and he was whatever. You know, so I recognize the person. I have a recognition. But that's not the same as saying, oh, that person, oh, he was a teacher of mine. He taught me so many great ideas. It makes me happy just to walk by him in the subway because it reminds me of how much I gained through learning and how much I benefited from him. And you can see how these values affect the attitude of a person. See, that's what, because when we looked at Successful Me and we decided to include that, we were thinking in terms of what does it take to be successful? You know, a person can be strong-willed and resilient and have all those qualities. A person can get along with everybody very well. But a person feels hopeless. A person feels like, oh, I'm not getting my fair share. Oh, life is not going my way. And we see a lot of that in the world today. A lot of people don't meet up to their potential because of that. A lot of people find alternative ways of gratifying themselves, which are very short-term and very destructive, because of a sense that I'm just, you know, what do I have in life? I have less than somebody else. Those are big issues, and we'll talk about that a little bit more as we go into the class. But I think you made me think about this in an interesting way. I think the idea of Hakarat Tov requires me to be makir, to have a specific recognition. See, so when I look at my watch and I say, oh, this is a X brand watch and it costs $129, you can get it online for $99 and blah, 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 and it has these 8 features. So that's, in a way, putting a value on something. But if I look at it and I say, oh, my great-grandfather, he was such a special person. I remember my grandmother talking about him, and this was his watch.
As she said, though, value could be a whole different...
I understand. I'm not putting it down. I just want to create a distinction here in terms of what the class is all about. Let's look at source number 2. And that we really discuss. Why is appreciation important? How do we envision a person who has it all and lacks appreciation versus a person who has less but really appreciates what he has? And this is a theme that comes up over and over and over and over again in the Torah, really right from the beginning, what I would say, right from the beginning. When God speaks to Adam and says, did you guys eat from that tree? So he says, Isha natatali, it's the woman's fault, right? Automatically, that's a lack of appreciation. It's a lack of appreciation. Because what is he doing? He's putting blame on someone else who in fact is his partner in life. You know what I mean? It would be like, did you eat the apple? No, talk to my hand. What do you mean talk to your hand? You control your hand. Not that you control your wife, but you control your hand. You have responsibility for it. But talk to my hand. And you find little kids do that. Very little children do that. Kids will literally say to you, did you hit him? No. Who hit him? My hand did. Because they're trying to disassociate themselves. The idea of appreciating something is overly associating with yourself with what you have. In a good way. In a good way. It's not like I am what I drive, because that's really an invitation to achieve status on an endless basis. But it could be I am what I drive. I get in the car every day. This is the car that my mother used to deliver food to the homeless people in. And I love driving in it because it reminds me of all the good things people can do. So then you are what you drive. Then you can be what you drive in a good way. So let's look at source number 3. Source number 3 is a very innovative idea. And here we really should look at the Hebrew, and I will do that. It says, here's what happened. We're in a different place in the Torah. It's from Bereshit, and it's exactly at the moment when Yosef was judged to die at the hands of his brothers. And actually, the rabbis tell us that they convened a Beit Din. They didn't just say, oh, we got to get rid of Yosef. They sat down as a court. They heard the evidence. They weighed the evidence. They voted guilty or innocent, and they decided that they should kill him. That's what they decided to do. So they came, they threw him in a pit, they had him. It takes a little time to work out the details, to execute somebody. And it says, Vayishma Reuven, Vayatzilehu miyadam. It said that Reuven heard and saved him from their hands. Now, first of all, what does it mean Reuven heard? Reuven was part of the brothers. He was part of the court.
Yeah, appreciate first. Let's come back to...
Okay, so let's look at the Medrash. There's a Medrash Rabbi here. It says the following. The Medrash says, where was Reuven? What do you mean he heard? You know what I mean? What do you mean you heard? You were part of the court. You were part of the people that judged him to die. Who are you kidding? Now, there is a different commentary that Reuven really wasn't there at the time and he came later, but this Medrash does not agree with that. Reuven was there. So it says something occurred to Reuven. He heard something in his mind that did not occur to him until that moment. And this is what he thought. He, Yosef, included me with my brothers when he dreamed about the 11 sheaves bowing down to one sheaf. There's all of a sudden a thought occurred to him. Why do we hate this guy? Why do we think this guy is a threat to the future of the Jewish people and should be killed? That's what they judged. They had these weird dreams. These dreams that we're all going to bow down to him. My father's going to bow down to him. My mothers are going to bow down to him. You know, what kind of person is that? You know, he's going to be part of the Jewish people. He's going to be builder of this nation that has tremendous respect for one another. He's an egomaniac. But then something occurred to Reuven. Reuven said, you know, when he had that dream, he included me amongst the 11 brothers. And this dream took place after a moment where Reuven was almost excluded from the Jewish people. Reuven had an incident with Bilhah, one of his father's wives. It's a hard incident to imagine, but the Torah stresses there the fact that as far as Jacob was concerned, Reuven remained part of the Jewish people. So Reuven made a certain thing. We're going to kill this man, Yosef. He deserves to die because of these weird dreams that are going to cause division and going to cause the whole Jewish people to fall apart. The same way, by the way, that Avram and Sarah sent Yishmael out of the house, the same way Rivka created a whole scheme to make sure the brachot went to Yaakov and didn't go to Esav. So we're doing the same thing. It's a generational thing in the Jewish people. Every now and then we have to throw somebody out. We Jews are pretty good at throwing people out. So that's what it's time for us to do. That's what we're going to do. Okay? So that's what they were ready to do. Reuven, all of a sudden something hit him. This, in his very dream, I owe him thanks and appreciation. He did me a favor. Because if you think about his dream in a totally different light, he included me amongst the brothers. So the very issue that we're here to throw him out of the Jewish people from, because he has this idea that he's going to rule over everybody, including our father. He's even going to rule over our father, which is a total abrogation of respect from one generation to another. But he included me at the very moment when I feared that I would be excluded from the Jewish family. Shall I not save him? So look, it's an amazing idea, and it's something that you would never see except this Rabbi Chaim Shmulevitz has a whole piece about discussing it. It says that's hakarat hatov, that's a recognition. So Vayishma Reuven worked as follows. Like, I could look at this watch. This watch happens not to be from any relative of mine, but I could look at this watch 1,000 times in the course of a day, and it doesn't do anything for me. All of a sudden, I look at the watch and I tell myself, gosh, my great-grandfather, what would he have done in this situation? People tell me he was a very honest man. I bet he wouldn't have done what I was thinking about doing. I'm going to act differently. So that's hakarat hatov. That's a recognition of where this thing comes from. That attaches a relationship to a thing in a personal way that speaks to me. That's what happened to Reuven. It's an amazing idea about hakarat hatov. Reuven just gets up. He's finishing judging Yosef. He deserves to die. Yes, deserves to die. I vote with the majority. Okay? He walks away and he says, how could I not save this guy? I owe this guy such gratitude for including me, for keeping me part of the Jewish people. I'm going to be part of this group that, even though it's deserving that gets rid of him, I can't do that. And that's the idea. That's what Reuven heard. Like I say, the same way that we can pick up any object and it can be meaningless to us, or we can pick up any object and it can be meaningful to us. That's what happened to Reuven. And that's what changed the course of Jewish history. Otherwise, the brothers really would have killed Yosef. And otherwise, we who knows where the Jewish people would have been under such circumstances. Let's just look at the way the Torah asks us about appreciating the land of Israel. This is also a different source. It comes from earlier in the book of Devarim. Torah says something very unusual. The land to which you come to possess it. It is not like Egypt that you left, where you plant your seed and readily water it like a vegetable garden. But the land to which you cross over to possess is a land of hills and valleys, from the rain of heaven it will drink water. Now, is this a compliment, or is this speaking detrimentally about the land of Israel?
It tells you it's a holy place. It tells you that Hashem is on it, and everything that happens comes from the heavens. So,
But it's talking about food.
yeah, but
So if you like food, move to Egypt. Because Egypt, since civilization, since we know of, Egypt is the best place in the world to live. You know why? It has the Nile River. It's a very unusual thing.
Yeah.
It's a freshwater river. It flows right through the middle of the country. And even before any technology existed in the world, people were smart enough to realize you take a stick and you push aside the dirt and the water flows in, and all of a sudden you can grow anything you want.
Yeah.
And you can grow anything you want. You know, so Egypt is a special place. Egypt has always been inhabited. The land of Israel sat empty, we know, in recent time for 2,000 years. There hasn't been 20 minutes that the land of Egypt has sat empty. As soon as one civilization is destroyed, other people move in because it's such a great deal. You're hungry? Throw a couple of seeds in the ground, take a stick, run the water in, and, l'chaim. You can have whatever you want. So what's God saying here? So God's saying the following thing. To me, and there's an interesting source about this, but I'll just tell you what the idea is. To me, it's like God says the following idea. This is the analogy I would give. God says, I rule over the world. I could pick any land I want from my children. Okay, you're my children, Beverly Hills, Monaco, there's a lot of nice places in the world, You can have whatever you want. So he said, okay, God, you pick it, right? You built it, you decide where we're going to live. So God says, you know what? I'd rather you don't live in Egypt. You know why? Because if you live in Egypt, whenever you're hungry, you'll throw a few seeds in the ground and you're going to eat.
no appreciation.
You live in Israel, you're going to say, gee, I'm hungry. Let's plant something. Say, plant something. What are you kidding? You stick some seeds in this ground, nothing's going to happen. It's dry as a bone here. That's why nobody lived there for 2,000 years when the Jewish people left. Almost nobody. The land was virtually empty. Mark Twain says that he landed in the port of Yaffo and he traveled to Jerusalem. He barely saw a person the whole way. There was nobody. Tel Aviv, it was just empty. There was nobody there. It wasn't that long ago. So God says, you know why? Because if you live in the land of Israel, you and I, my children, and me, God, we're going to have a lot to do with each other. Because every time you're hungry, you're going to say, gee, we really could use a little rain here. Well, you want a rain? Have to say, Mashiv HaRuach Marida Goshem. Have to ask God to have some rainfall. And then rain falls, and then we say, oh boy, look at that, the pomegranate trees are growing. We're going to have something to eat. It's going to be a special Rosh Hashanah. Okay. But then when you eat it, you're automatically going to say, wow, but where did this come from? Baruch Hashem, the rain fell. And the analogy I give is the following thing. In a certain sense, if you imagine a couple wanting to go on vacation. So the husband, let's say, one person says to the other person, we'll keep it gender neutral. One person says, well, we can go on vacation any place in the world. We can go. Where do you want to go? The other person says, I want to go here where there's a lot of entertainment. I want to go there. I want to be in England when the Olympics take place. I want to be where everybody's going, where there's millions of people, where there's happening and events and everything like that. And the other person feels a little hurt and says, I thought the vacation was about you and me, going someplace, talking to each other, spending time together, You want to go to London? Go to London for the Olympics. I'm going to stay home and watch it on television. And when you're done with that, then maybe you'll come back and we can talk to each other. There's a sense that God is saying that, what I appreciate about the land? The land is a place where we'll connect to one another, where the land itself will breed a sense of relationship between me and the Jewish people. That's what makes the land special. Now, it's not special to too many people. It's really not. As much as people fought over Jerusalem, I guess it's not so fair. The Crusades took place in the 10th century. A lot of wars were fought over Jerusalem. But the land itself was empty. Nobody really cared. It was an ego trip. You needed Jerusalem to prove that your God was stronger than somebody else's God. And that's all that was really going on. Nobody really wanted to live there. None of the Crusaders who conquered Jerusalem moved in and stayed there. They all went back home wherever they were, whether they were Muslim or whether they were Christian. Nobody really wanted Jerusalem. They just wanted to know that they owned it. The way we think about so many things in our life. We want to own it, but once we own it, it doesn't mean that much to us. But to really feel an attachment to that place, you have to be the kind of person that says, I love this place, like you said, because there's something inside of me that stirs. Because this is where, if this is the watch that my great-grandfather used, and he was a very honest man, and it reminds me of good values, well, this is the land that Avram and Sarah walked around in. They're buried here. This is, this really goes back, like we said up on top, that they've come to the land that Hashem swore to give to our fathers. We're taking an abstract idea and we're embedding it in the place so that the place should mean something to us and so that we should appreciate it. Because if not, look at the world we live in today. Oh, it's a beautiful day in Yerushalayim. Yeah, but I look in USA Today and I see it's 5 degrees cooler in Monaco. Maybe we should get on a plane and go there. I see that this is happening this place in the world. Part of the flexibility, and it's interesting to me, but as the world heats up emotionally, so all of a sudden we can fly from one part of the world to the other in 10, 12 hours. It means literally, I had a person I knew once, I had an appointment with him, and this is a very funny story to me. He called me in the morning and said, Rabbi, I can't meet with you today. I said, okay. He said, I'll tell you why. I got up this morning and I had an itch to play golf, and I'm flying to Scotland to play golf, and I'll be back on Thursday. Maybe we could meet then. I thought to myself, wow, what a world this guy lives in. It's a pretty, in the history of humanity, nobody could have thought that way. Nobody ever before could have thought that way. But look what it does to the person, or what it can do to the person, in terms of his sense of place, his sense of attachment, his sense of valuing something. It's not an easy thing to reconcile with. And the Torah is very concerned about that. And the last idea I just want to touch on is an appreciation of Torah. If you look at the end of the Torah, Torah tziva lanu Moshe morasha kirat Yaakov. The first words you're supposed to teach a child, even before they speak, Maimonides says, you start telling the sentence, we have a Torah, morasha kirat Yaakov. This is our morasha. And the word morasha, it's different than the word nachala, which the Torah uses. A morasha is something that you receive, right? And it's something that you want to pass on. That's what the concept of morasha means. So in other words, if I look at this watch and I say, wow, this is my great-grandfather's watch, and I say, gee, it has a scratch. So you say, a scratch, that makes it more special. Maybe it's a scratch from your grandfather's time, or your great-grandfather's time. I say, yeah, but it's a new scratch, and this means that when I give it to my son, he won't be able to read the dial very well. I think I'm going to get that scratch taken out. Because not only do I enjoy the connection I have and what it's meaningful to me, I have to be the person who also preserves it in such a way that it's meaningful for the next generation as well. Which, if you think about it, that's our job as educators, that's our job as parents. We have one big job. And we can't even begin to do this job until we have a certain sense of appreciation. And we have to, better than yelling at the kid, I'm the one who gave birth to you, which is a trump card that is sometimes evoked by people. What about the idea of thinking to our kid, someday you're going to be the parent of children. And if you don't learn to pick up your socks from the floor, what kind of home are your children going to live in? It'll be a wreck. It's a different perspective. But it's this idea of morasha. It's this idea of seeing that things go on. And I'll just make almost a political comment here. We live at a time in American history where, for the first time in the last 2 generations, we're grappling with this issue that our children may not live better than we did. Okay, it's a big political issue. It's mentioned by politicians all the time. The real answer we should think about is, so what? I have a very happy life, and if my kid ends up if I have 4 bedrooms and my kid ends up living in a house with 3 bedrooms or 2 bedrooms,
It'll be closer.
Yeah, is that the end of the world? Now, in modern terms, that's the end of the world. Please understand that. You could not, if I was running for president of the United States and I gave this class, my poll numbers would go from wherever they were to 0 instantly. Guy has no vision for America. What's he saying to us? You know what I mean? But the truth is, this is what it means to have a vision. Nobody can guarantee that if I have 4 bedrooms, my kid's going to have 5, and my grandchildren are going to have 6, and my great-grandchildren are going to have 7. And yeah, there are people with all those bedrooms. So what? In other words, so what? You know, I once heard a talk from a Holocaust survivor, a woman who came from Hungary, and she said that her family had lived in the same home, and I think she said 400 years in the same home. I mean, I didn't even imagine that homes lasted that long, and I had to look it up. You know, but if you go to cities like Amsterdam, a lot of the homes in Amsterdam were built in around 1600. You know, and their homes, you know, you have a for sale sign in front of them. The real estate people come in and out, they sell it and everything like that. It's not a historical site, it's just a home. So she said that. So it really hit me. I thought to myself, gee, in America, I mean, just imagine if Abraham Lincoln's great-great-great-great-grandchildren were living in a log cabin in Illinois. You know, you would think, never, we have to have a fund to help them, because it's the antithesis of what American society is built on. You know, and we tend not to value old things in America. You know, so it's something to think about. And it's not a question of valuing what's old. It's a question of valuing people.
Substance.
And the essence to Hakarat HaTov is the relationship from which it comes. You know, I think when we say Ha'aretz Asher Natata Lanu, we say this is the land, when we arrive in Israel, this is the land God gave us. This is the watch my great-great-grandfather bought and has passed down. That's what we say when we bring the Bikurim. See this pomegranate? Yeah, it may not make it into Whole Foods, you know, because nobody will pay $6.99 for it. But for me, it's priceless, because who gave me this land? Where does it come from? Where did the water come from that enabled it to grow? And what layers and generations of friendships and caring about one another does this land and this place represent to me? That's what it represents. And that's the process of kids seeing Hashem and beginning to develop a proper sense of appreciation. And again, there are no shortcuts here. You know, don't expect your kid's toy room to be all meticulously put away, and when his friends come over and somebody says, oh, look at that dorky Mr. Potato Head, nobody plays with it. Well, what are you talking about? My mother gave this to me. You know, probably not going to happen that quickly, but over a lifetime, such ideas can happen, and they can really make a difference for us.
Let's go.